The South China Sea is a critical world trade route and a potential source of hydrocarbons, particularly natural gas, with competing claims of ownership over the sea and its resources. Stretching from Singapore and the Strait of Malacca in the southwest to the Strait of Taiwan in the northeast, the South China Sea is one of the most important trade routes in the world. The sea is rich in resources and holds significant strategic and political importance. The area includes several hundred small islands, rocks, and reefs, with the majority located in the Paracel and Spratly Island chains. Many of these islands are partially submerged landmasses unsuitable for habitation and are little more than shipping hazards. For example, the total land area of the Spratly Islands encompasses less than 3 square miles. Several of the countries bordering the sea declare ownership of the islands to claim the surrounding sea and its resources. The Gulf of Thailand borders the South China Sea, and although technically not part of it, disputes surround ownership of that Gulf and its resources as well. Asia's robust economic growth boosts demand for energy in the region. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, projects total liquid fuels consumption in Asian countries outside the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, to rise at an annual growth rate of 2.6%, growing from around 20% of world consumption in 2008 to over 30% of world consumption by 2035. Similarly, non-OECD Asian natural gas consumption grows by 3.9% annually, from 10% of world gas consumption in 2008 to 19% by 2035. Solely China to account for 43% of this growth. With Southeast Asian domestic oil production projected to stay flat or decline as consumption rises, the region's countries will look to new sources of energy to meet domestic demand. China in particular promotes the use of natural gas as a preferred energy source and set an ambitious target of increasing the share of natural gas in its energy mix from 3% to 10% by 2020. The South China Sea offers the potential for significant natural gas discoveries, creating an incentive to secure larger parts of the area for domestic production. It is believed that beneath the South China Sea, there are significant oil and gas reserves. These reserves could potentially provide energy security to the claimant countries. For centuries, the South China Sea has echoed with tales of naval explorations, rivalries, and territorial quests, reminiscent of how the Silk Road once shaped empires and cultural exchanges. Today, it's a modern-day tapestry of geopolitical tensions. Surin Pitsuwan, the astute former Secretary General of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, even drew parallels to the enduring Middle Eastern strife, dubbing the maritime disputes as potentially becoming Asia's Palestine. To add another layer to this intricate saga, China recently issued new passports, imprinted with a map that marks contested territories as part of its dominion. But beneath these territorial overlays, the real pulse of the conflict beats around the coveted energy resources lying dormant beneath the sea's expanse. The oceans have long been considered nature's battery. The International Energy Agency has underscored the sea's potential, estimating their renewable energy capacity to be a staggering 93,100 terawatt-hour annually. Before we dive deeper, consider joining our creative journey on Patreon. Your support amplifies our mission to deliver top-notch content. Now, let's get back to our discussion. Historical shifts in energy sources, from wood to coal to oil, have dictated the rise and fall of empires. Today, nations like Malaysia are attempting to script their energy futures, aiming for a shift towards sustainability. Their ambitious 5-year plan, spanning from 2016 to 2020, envisaged a substantial reduction in fossil fuel dependency. By 2018, the target was set to generate 20% of its electricity from renewables by 2025. Predictions hint at Malaysia's oil and gas reserves depleting by 2035. Furthermore, giants like China and India find themselves on the shaky grounds of import dependency, with China importing 59% of its oil needs and India a whopping 80% within a year. The stories of ancient civilizations being impacted by resource scarcity come to mind, emphasizing the urgency of modern nations to find stable, inexhaustible energy avenues.
Demand in China already at record levels. Yes, it's not back to where I think expectations were, but between China and India, you have almost 2 million barrels a day increase in demand in the second half of this year.
Beneath the waves of the South China Sea lies a treasure trove of energy, reminiscent of the tales of El Dorado or King Solomon's mines. But here the treasure is black gold and gas. The U.S. Energy Information Agency estimates that this marine expanse conceals about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil in proved and probable reserves, mostly nestled along its borders. These figures seem even more staggering when one considers the U.S. Geological Survey's speculation of an additional 160 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 12 billion barrels of undiscovered oil. Beijing, with its insatiable energy appetite, has its own calculations. If we dive deeper into specific regions, South Vietnam emerges with a promising 2,847 million barrels, while Borneo and Sarawak tower with an astonishing potential of 9,260 million barrels. However, not to be overshadowed, the Philippines holds a respectable reserve of 409 million barrels. Historically, regions rich in resources have been the bedrock of empires and the spark for wars, and the South China Sea, with its abundant reserves, echoes this narrative.
Oil exploration in the South China Sea has been on and off the government's agenda for years.
Coastal waters here aren't just geopolitically significant, they're also biologically diverse treasure chests. While ancient folklore spoke of treasure-laden sunken ships, today's discourse is about another kind of treasure: hydrocarbons. Though estimates have been as varied as the legends of old, it's commonly believed the region conceals oil reserves anywhere between a conservative 7.7 billion to a whopping 213 billion barrels. To put that in perspective, if the higher estimates ring true, it would rival about 80% of the oil reserves of Saudi Arabia, turning this sea into a modern-day equivalent of the golden sands of the Middle East. As for the Spratly and Paracel Islands, while there's no consensus, many are lured by the promise of significant hydrocarbon deposits. However, oil is only one chapter in this unfolding epic. The South China Sea's narrative is equally, if not more, about natural gas. Dominating the hydrocarbon tales, natural gas constitutes 60 to 70% of the region's energy reserves, estimated around 266 trillion cubic feet. Most of the explored fields across exclusive economic zones from Brunei to the Philippines whisper tales of natural gas. Chinese estimations ever-ambitious posit reserves in the South China Sea to be a mammoth 2 quadrillion cubic feet, with dreams of producing 15 billion cubic meters of LNG annually. Drawing a parallel, if the highest estimates were proven, the South China Sea's gas resources could rival those of Qatar, which proudly sits on the world's third largest reserves. Venturing beyond the allure of hydrocarbons, the South China Sea potentially cradles another treasure, reminiscent of the magical elements from alchemist tales, rare earth metals, REMs. As ordained by the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, rare earth metals are a collection of 17 magical-like elements, comprising the 15 lanthanides and crowned with scandium and yttrium. What makes them enchanting in our modern age is their vital role in forging the tools of the future. Imagine a sorcerer's wand being replaced by smartphones, the carriages by hybrid cars, and the magical mirrors by flat-screen TVs. All these modern marvels are imbued with the power of rare earth metals. The South China Sea, while still mysterious about its REM bounty, hints at a broader narrative. Just as the historic Silk Road witnessed power plays and conflicts, the modern-day intrigue has shifted to these metals. Not far from this marine expanse off Japan's eastern coast lies a significant rare earth metals deposit. Meanwhile, China, wielding its near monopoly over these coveted elements like a chess grandmaster, has in the past used its stronghold over these metals to mark its dominance, especially during the Senkaku, Diaoyu Island tussle. The exploration of hydrocarbon resources in the South China Sea is laden with both opportunities and challenges. The waters have always been seen more as a potential source of natural gas than oil, but exploiting these resources has been an uphill task. While national oil companies have had some success near the shorelines, the vast majority of the sea remains enigmatic, its depths concealing treasures that are tantalizingly out of reach. As ships once set out during the age of exploration in search of new territories and trade routes, today's nations cast their eyes and technologies to the deep waters. But these waters are not calm. Submarine valleys and powerful currents present formidable geological hurdles to laying the necessary infrastructure. There's also the looming threat of typhoons and tropical storms, necessitating innovations such as those seen in the Gulf of Mexico, like tension leg tethering of installations. Historically, Brunei has been one of the first to dip its toes into these waters. Brunei Shell Petroleum, a collaboration between the government and Shell, is the primary force behind the nation's hydrocarbon endeavors. In 1972, the Champion offshore oil and gas field started its production, marking Brunei's significant step into the hydrocarbon industry. Their ambitions took a leap in 2009, when Malaysia and Brunei settled a territorial dispute, paving the way for deeper collaborations like their partnership in 2011 to drill in several offshore fields. China's quest in these waters is deep-rooted in its surging energy demands. With the three Leviathans, CNOOC, Sinopec, and CNPC, spearheading its efforts, China has made remarkable advancements, particularly in the Pearl River mouth and Qiangdongyan basins. The story of China's foray into deep-water exploration is symbolized by the mighty Chinook 981, a drilling behemoth that stood as a testament to China's offshore ambitions. Indonesia, despite its vast archipelago, has most of its renowned oil fields, like Duri and Minas, outside the South China Sea's troubled waters. Their focus has been more inward, ensuring oil and gas production suffices domestic needs. But PT Pertamina, Indonesia's national pride, has its eyes set on potential treasure troves, like the Natura's D Alpha block. Malaysia's national oil company, Petronas, a name that resonates with architectural marvels like the Petronas Towers, is also an icon in the country's oil and gas endeavors. Their peninsular gas utilization system, a massive infrastructure feat, holds the key to their ambitions in the South China Sea. International collaborations, especially with giants like ExxonMobil, have further propelled Malaysia into a significant player in the region. The Philippines' Malampaya gas platform is a marvel in the northern Palawan Basin, producing power for domestic use since 2001. It wasn't all smooth sailing, as they experienced firsthand the geopolitical complications when exploration in the Reed Bank area was interrupted by Chinese concerns. Thailand's waters, particularly the Gulf of Thailand, have been generous, supplying about 80% of the nation's crude oil. Chevron, a significant player in this arena, has been instrumental in harnessing this bounty. Vietnam's aspirations in the South China Sea reflect its broader goals. With foreign collaborations at its core, Vietnam's push to award contracts has seen many international players, from Chevron to France's Perenco, actively drilling in its waters. But the shadows of geopolitical disputes, especially with China, have often clouded their exploration ambitions. Singapore, while not actively involved in exploration, serves as the lifeblood of the region's hydrocarbon trade. It refines crude from the Strait of Malacca and the South China Sea, playing a pivotal role in the energy dynamics of Asia. To comprehend the South China Sea's hydrocarbon saga is to understand the intricate dance of geology, technology, politics, and history. It's a tale of nations vying for treasures hidden deep beneath the waves, driven by both necessity and ambition. The International Energy Agency has extolled the boundless potential of our oceans, estimating their renewable energy capacity at a staggering 93,100 terawatt-hours per year. Malaysia, echoing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, has charted a course away from non-renewable fossil fuels. Emboldened by a 5-year plan from 2016 to 2020, the nation envisions sourcing 20% of its electricity from renewable means by 2025. Yet the allure of fossil fuels persists. Their affordability contrasts sharply with the looming environmental shadows they cast, especially through carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxides emissions. Interestingly, the COVID-19 pandemic's impact in 2020 momentarily reduced the world's reliance on coal and oil, hinting at a cleaner path ahead. However, the energy landscape is replete with challenges. By 2035, Malaysia may see its oil and gas reserves depleted. Farther afield, China and India grapple with their heavy reliance on imports, constituting 59% and 80% of their total oil consumption, respectively. This dependence, interwoven with the unpredictable pricing of fossil fuels, emphasizes the urgency of renewable energy transitions. Offshore, the energy needs of oil platforms vary, from the 10-megawatt demand of a Shell platform in Sabah to others requiring as much as 44 megawatts. Though their tales differ, the overarching narrative seeks optimal regions for wave energy development, questioning if renewables can meet the demands of these offshore behemoths. The South China Sea is not just a vast expanse of water, it's a reservoir of life and geopolitics. Stretching from Karimata and the Malacca Straits all the way to the Straits of Taiwan, this 3.5 million square kilometers of the Pacific Ocean brims with biodiversity. Most crucially, it's a lifeline for countless coastal communities, feeding them and fueling their economies. Encircled by nations like China, Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore, and Vietnam, the waters have been churned by territorial tussles. Amid these political waves, the sea's ecological richness often gets overshadowed. It's home to a staggering 571 coral species, rivaling the famed Coral Triangle in biodiversity. But these ecological jewels are at risk, with conservation efforts often stymied by geopolitical standoffs. Diving deeper into its marine treasures, the South China Sea shelters around 400 fish species. As per the Global International Waters Assessment, it ranks 4th among the world's 19 major fishing zones in productivity. These fisheries are more than just numbers. They are the beating heart of numerous island communities, for whom the act of fishing is both sustenance and tradition. However, this marine Eden faces mounting threats: overfishing, coral bleaching, and resource mismanagement. There's a ray of hope from the Spratly Islands, though. A pivotal study by the World Fish Center spotlighted these islands as vital conduits for fish larvae dispersal. This means the Spratlys could potentially replenish the dwindling fish stocks of the entire sea. Seizing this revelation, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, proposed the Spratly Islands Marine Peace Park. This envisioned sanctuary, governed by an international board and safeguarded by a neutral ranger force, could be a testament to ecological cooperation transcending political borders. The South China Sea serves up to 10% of the world's fish catch. As Southeast Asia's reliance on fish for protein and income intensifies, so does the strain on these waters. The booming middle class of East Asia amplifies the demand, resulting in unprecedented fishing activities in the sea, leading to an alarming depletion of fish stocks by 5 to 30%. Studies by the Filipino Department of Environment and Natural Resources further underscore the sea's significance, revealing that it cradles a third of the world's marine biodiversity. Noteworthy marine species like hairtail, chub mackerel, black scraper, and anchovy thrive here. Yet, the challenges are daunting, as it is believed that 40% of fish stocks are either collapsed or overexploited, with 70% of coral reefs in decline. Beyond the ecological concerns, fishing rights themselves are becoming a flashpoint. While hydrocarbon reserves often grab headlines, many experts argue that fishing rights are igniting more conflicts. The annual fishing bans imposed by China, though packaged as environmental measures, are often interpreted as territorial assertions. A testament to the escalating tension is China's deployment of a staggering 23,000 fishing vessels this year after the end of their annual ban. Southeast Asia, a marine marvel, boasts 100,000 square kilometers of coral reefs, constituting 34% of the world's total. This region, rich in over 600 reef-building coral species, also shelters the majority of the world's coral reef fish, mollusks, and crustaceans, alongside 51 of the 70 mangrove species and nearly half of all seagrass varieties. Economically, these ecosystems pump a commendable $2.4 billion annually into the region's economy, with Indonesia and the Philippines alone accruing benefits of $1.6 billion and $1.1 billion respectively. However, looming threats endanger 88% of these reefs, with overfishing, destructive fishing, and pollution leading the charge. Merely 14% of the marine protected areas stand as well-managed bastions against these challenges. Beneath the tranquil waves of the South China Sea lie stories of historic international commerce, with sunken vessels offering a tangible window into bygone days. Chinese researchers recently unveiled 2 deep-sea wrecks, located 1,500 meters below the surface and roughly 20 kilometers apart. One of these maritime treasures bore thousands of porcelain cups and vases, their intricate blue and white patterns veiled in silt, reminiscent of the Ming Dynasty's extensive trade network. These artifacts, destined for far-flung markets from China's southern kilns, highlight the ancient maritime Silk Road's global expanse. Conversely, the timber-laden second wreck possibly alludes to China's vibrant import trade.
这些你大概标出来的，你就是西沙咯、中沙咯，还有南沙这个位置，已经是标在它的航海图上面了。
With over 100,000 cultural relics unearthed, especially from the northwest continental slope No One shipwreck, these maritime finds not only enthrall archaeologists, but might serve as historical anchors for China's territorial assertions in the South China Sea's contested waters. To realize these discoveries, China has propelled its maritime archaeological pursuits to unparalleled depths. A formidable team of 30 experts employed advanced vessels like the Tansuo 1, complemented by the prowess of the submersible Shanghai Yangshi, or Deep Sea Warrior. The integration of cutting-edge soft robotics and novel scanning techniques ensured the gentle extraction of these relics. This ambitious exploration, transcending the previous confines of shallow waters, initiated around 2018 through a partnership between the National Center for Archaeology and the Institute of Deep Sea Science and Engineering.
发现大量原木，初步研判是从海外装载货物驶往中国的古代船只，时代约在明弘治年间。
Their combined expertise has brought to light myriad artifacts from epochs spanning the Tang Dynasty to the Qing Dynasty near the Xisha Islands. With every artifact uncovered, China emphasizes its dedication to international collaboration in cherishing and disseminating these submerged tales of history.
It's being led by a team of 2 co-chief scientists from China, and we have a large number of Chinese scientists on board, larger than the usual complement. And so together with their international colleagues, it's going to be a very exciting expedition to understand the history of the South China Sea.
The South China Sea, a strategic, semi-enclosed expanse wedged between the southeast coast of Asia and the western Pacific Ocean, serves as a critical conduit for a substantial fraction of global internet traffic thanks to its undersea cables. The seabed cradles pivots undersea cables, thus transmitting a substantial chunk of global internet traffic. Their strategic significance was underscored when, in 2016, a Chinese fishing boat severed a cable linking Hong Kong and the Philippines, and a 2017 incident suspected as a cyber attack hampered Vietnam's undersea connectivity. Such vulnerabilities amplify the region's security challenges, prompting recommendations for enhanced fiber optic usage. Collaborative international endeavors for safeguarding this infrastructure, which is vital for both the world economy and international stability, are imperative. The marine realm, a nexus of biodiversity and geological wonders, beckons scientific exploration.
With 30 geologists on board from more than 10 nations, this is a major international undertaking out into the South China Sea. Over the next couple of months, this vessel will be drilling in some of the deepest parts of that sea, trying to get a better understanding of the shifting plate tectonics on the seabed.
Home to essential ecosystems such as coral reefs, mangrove forests, and seagrass meadows, it plays host to a diverse array of marine life, including endangered species like the dugong and the ancient leatherback turtle. The tectonic activity beneath its surface hints at latent insights into geological formations and potential oil and gas reserves. Historically, its waters have witnessed the bustling activities of major shipping lanes and the daily lives of myriad coastal communities, emphasizing the need to understand climate change implications and refine maritime safety through studying its oceanography. The footprints of human activities from fishing to coastal developments spotlight the pressing need for research to comprehend their repercussions and chart out sustainable conservation strategies. The South China Sea holds a formidable position in global trade, acting as a linchpin through which an estimated 80% of global trade by volume sails. Historically, maritime routes have shaped the geopolitics and economy of nations. The ancient Silk Road, for example, not only facilitated trade but also the exchange of culture, ideas, and innovations. Similarly, the South China Sea is a modern-day Silk Road in the maritime realm. While initial estimates marked an annual trade value of $5.3 trillion in these waters, with $1.2 trillion linked to U.S. trade, a meticulous analysis by China Power revisited these figures, pegging them closer to $3.4 trillion in 2016. This massive figure translated to 21% of global trade that year, with China channeling over 64% of its maritime trade through these waters, Japan 42%, and the US a mere 14%. Within this bustling maritime highway, oil and natural gas trade occupies a paramount niche. Daily, the South China Sea and Gulf of Thailand see about 14 million barrels of crude oil pass through, equating to almost 1/3 of global oil transit. Most of this flow, a resounding 90%, emerges from the Strait of Malacca, an essential corridor connecting African and Persian Gulf suppliers to voracious Asian markets. In 2011, this strait alone witnessed the passage of 15.2 million barrels per day. Terminals in Singapore and Malaysia play a pivotal role in this dynamic, processing 1.4 million barrels daily and subsequently disseminating refined petroleum products. Furthermore, the South China Sea's significance isn't just limited to crude oil. In 2011, it was the conduit for approximately 6 trillion cubic feet of global LNG trade, over half the world's total. Japan imported 56% of this, South Korea 24%, and both China and Taiwan about 19%. Qatar distinguished itself as the primary exporter, sending forth 1.2 trillion cubic feet via the sea. After the tragic Fukushima crisis in Japan, the region's LNG import saw a marked surge, leading to the South China Sea accounting for about 58% of global LNG trade in the initial half of 2012. The Straits of Malacca, Sunda, and Lombok bear testament to the volume of maritime traffic, witnessing more than half of the global annual merchant fleet tonnage. A 2006 Japanese study revealed a staggering 94,000 vessel movements through the Strait of Malacca in 2004. Drawing parallels to the bustling trade hubs of the ancient world, these straits are reminiscent of historic centers like Constantinople, which acted as crossroads of trade and culture. China's relationship with the South China Sea is deeply entwined and historically layered. A glance back to statements from China's leadership in 2003, especially from the President Hu Jintao, unveils concerns about the potential dominance over the Strait of Malacca by major powers. This evoked memories of historic choke points and the strategic battles for control, leading to discussions on the Malacca dilemma and China's contemplation of alternate shipping routes. Yet the economic gravity of this region arguably positions China more as a guardian than a disruptor. The waters of the South China Sea, with their shimmering expanse, are riddled with a complex web of territorial claims. In its northern reaches, the Paracel Islands, dominated by China, are nonetheless claimed by Taiwan and Vietnam. Further south, the Spratly Islands emerge as even more contentious. These tiny landforms have become the nexus of overlapping claims by no less than 6 nations, including China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. The legal backdrop to this maritime chessboard is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea UN Close, which all involved nations have ratified. While the majority of the South China Sea's waters do fit within the territorial claims of its bordering nations, UNCLOS posits that features like the parcels and spratlys generate their own exclusive economic zones and continental shelves. China's ambitious 10-line claim, based on a 1947 map, audaciously claims the vast majority of these waters. Peeling back the layers, the Spratly Islands, while currently housing minimal economically viable natural gas reserves, hold promise for significant deposits of undiscovered hydrocarbons. Notably, Reed Bank, situated northeast of the Spratlys and contested by China, Taiwan, and Vietnam, has been a focal point of exploration endeavors since the 1970s. Historical examination reveals that most of the currently tapped reserves sit within shallow basins near the sea's boundaries, reflecting the underexplored nature of the deeper reaches. Countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei have been pioneers, investing in offshore technologies and forging partnerships to leverage foreign expertise. The South China Sea disputes have tested ASEAN's unity, given the disparate interests and stakes of its member states. Only 5 of its 10 members have direct claims, while others hold commercial interests, making a unanimous stance challenging. Since its proposal in 1992, the Maritime Code of Conduct for the South China Sea has seen prolonged negotiations between ASEAN and China, with a notable achievement being the adoption of the single draft negotiating text in 2018, reflecting the ongoing commitment to regional peace and stability. The South China Sea, with its vast hydrocarbon reserves and rare earth minerals, is an epicenter of escalating Asian energy demands and economic potential. Its rich marine biodiversity, intertwined with significant archaeological treasures, highlights its environmental and historical value. As a nexus of global trade and communication through undersea cables, its strategic importance is magnified by the complex overlay of contested territories. This region stands as a dynamic confluence of resources, history, and geopolitics, pivotal to the Asia-Pacific's future. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage. Stay informed, and we'll see you in our next video.